Have you ever thought about who the most powerful dark wizard in the Harry Potter universe really is? What if Voldemort isn't the ultimate villain we've all believed him to be? In today's video, you'll find out why Gellert Grindelwald might actually be the greatest dark wizard of all time, and why Voldemort pales in comparison. For years, I was convinced that Voldemort was the most terrifying, unstoppable, and dangerous wizard in the wizarding world. He seemed invincible, striking fear into the hearts of everyone. His presence alone sent shivers down spines. I even declared him the greatest dark wizard in one of my previous articles. But then something changed. A comment made me question everything. Someone suggested that Grindelwald, not Voldemort, deserved that title. At first I dismissed it, but the more I read about Grindelwald, the more I compared his history to Voldemort's, the more I began to doubt my original stance. And now I've come to a shocking realization. Grindelwald wasn't just as powerful as Voldemort. He was stronger, smarter, far more dangerous, and I'm about to prove it. Before we dive in, just a quick disclaimer. This is my personal opinion. If you disagree, feel free to debate in the comments. Now let's get started. Voldemort was fueled by hatred toward his father, his mother, his teachers, muggles, muggleborns, and basically anyone who wasn't bowing to him. His fear of death defined his entire existence. That fear led him to create Horcruxes, desperately trying to cheat fate. His followers weren't loyal out of admiration. They served him out of terror. Even his closest allies, like the Malfoys and Peter Pettigrew, feared him more than they respected him. At his core, Voldemort was a frightened, bitter child lashing out at the world. Grindelwald, he was different. He had vision. He wasn't just seeking power. He wanted to reshape the world. He believed in his own superiority and sought the Deathly Hallows to cement his dominance. Unlike Voldemort, he didn't force followers into submission. People followed him because they were captivated by his charisma, his ideals. He even managed to sway young Dumbledore, something Voldemort could never dream of. And unlike Voldemort, Grindelwald had regrets. In the end, he faced his own failures, acknowledged his crimes. That alone makes him a far more complex and compelling figure. Now let's talk about their impact. Voldemort started 2 wars. His reign of terror was brutal, but it was limited. He never dared to expand beyond Britain. Despite all his power, he remained a local villain. Grindelwald? He ignited a war that spread across Europe and even reached America. He wasn't just a threat to the UK, he was a global nightmare. His followers weren't just terrorizing wizards in one country, they were shaking the foundations of the entire wizarding world. His goal? The creation of a magical empire, a vision far grander than Voldemort's personal vendettas. He even built his own prison, Nurmengard, a fortress meant to hold his enemies. Ironic, considering it became his own final resting place. Now let's compare their magical abilities. Voldemort was undeniably skilled. He excelled in the dark arts from a young age, mastered Horcruxes, and even learned to fly without a broom. He was a formidable duelist, taking on some of the best wizards of his time. His battle with Dumbledore at the Ministry was intense, though it's worth noting that Dumbledore was already weakened at that point. Grindelwald, however, was a true prodigy. From his youth, he displayed extraordinary magical talent, quickly becoming one of Durmstrang's top students. His combat skills were unmatched. He defeated Aberforth Dumbledore, overpowered American auras, and mastered wandless magic. He fought entire squads of wizards, and won. And let's not forget his duel with Dumbledore. Many call it the greatest wizarding battle in history. Unlike Voldemort's fight with a weakened Dumbledore, Grindelwald faced Albus at his peak, and he nearly won. That alone speaks volumes. So who truly stands above? Voldemort was feared. Grindelwald was revered. Voldemort ruled through fear. Grindelwald ruled through ideology. Voldemort's ambitions were personal. Grindelwald sought to change the world. In the end, there's no contest. Grindelwald wasn't just a dark wizard, he was a force of nature, a villain whose shadow loomed far beyond Voldemort's reach. Voldemort and Grindelwald both carved their names into history, but their approaches couldn't be more different. Voldemort saw himself as a supreme being, above all others, a god in human form. But his belief in his own invincibility was his greatest weakness. He underestimated love, loyalty, and even his own followers. He saw them as pawns, disposable tools in his pursuit of power. That's why so many turned on him in the end. Grindelwald, he built something bigger than himself. He crafted a vision, a cause, something his followers believed in long after his defeat. Even decades later, whispers of his ideology still circulated. Unlike Voldemort, who ruled by fear, Grindelwald inspired loyalty. His followers didn't cower before him. They believed in him. That made him infinitely more dangerous. His influence wasn't just political, it was psychological. He had a way of getting inside people's heads, twisting their beliefs, making them question what they thought was right and wrong. Even Albus Dumbledore, the greatest wizard of his time, wasn't immune. That alone says everything. Voldemort could never manipulate people like that. He didn't understand them. He never cared to. And then there's their use of magic. Voldemort relied on brute force, raw destructive power. He cast the killing curse without hesitation, created Horcruxes to anchor himself to the world, mastered dark spells that left his enemies broken. But he lacked creativity. He didn't invent, he didn't expand the possibilities of magic. He took existing spells and twisted them for his own gain. Grindelwald, on the other hand, was a true innovator. He pushed magic beyond its known limits. He wasn't just powerful, he was revolutionary. He saw magic as something greater than a weapon. He didn't just kill his enemies, he manipulated them, outmaneuvered them, bent reality to his will. He could wield magic without a wand, teleport without restriction, take down entire squads of auras without breaking a sweat. He was unpredictable, adaptable, always one step ahead. Look at their final moments. Voldemort died the way he lived, alone, terrified, unable to comprehend that his own arrogance had led to his downfall. He didn't understand why his wand betrayed him. He didn't understand why he was losing. He spent his last moments in complete confusion, robbed of the power he had built his entire existence around. Grindelwald, even at his weakest, refused to bow. Locked away in his own prison, he didn't break. He didn't beg. He mocked Voldemort to his face, refusing to give him the information he wanted. He knew he was going to die, but he met his fate with dignity. Even in his final hour, he was stronger than Voldemort ever was. And let's talk about their legacy. Voldemort left nothing behind. The moment he fell, his empire crumbled, his followers scattered, his name became a cautionary tale, a footnote in history. He had no lasting impact, no grand ideology, no real change. Grindelwald's influence never truly faded. His vision for the wizarding world continued to echo long after he was gone. His followers, though defeated, still carried his ideas. His war reshaped global wizarding politics. He didn't just seek power, he sought to rewrite the very structure of their world. That ambition alone makes him a far greater figure than Voldemort. Even the Elder Wand tells a story. Voldemort saw it as just another weapon. He wielded it without understanding its true nature, without earning its loyalty. Grindelwald, on the other hand, mastered it. He knew its secrets. He understood it in a way Voldemort never could, and that's why it ultimately rejected Voldemort in the end. There's also the question of intelligence. Voldemort was clever, yes. He knew how to manipulate, how to strategize, how to terrorize. but he was short-sighted. He believed in brute force over subtlety. He saw emotions as weaknesses rather than tools. He never considered the bigger picture, but that's why he lost. Grindelwald was patient. He played the long game. He built his power carefully, choosing his battles, manipulating events from the shadows. He didn't need to scream his threats. He let others do the work for him, weaving his influence through politics, alliances, and quiet whispers. That's what made him so terrifying. He wasn't just a dark wizard. He was a mastermind. And then there's the matter of fear. Voldemort thrived on it. He wanted to be feared, needed to be feared. But that reliance on terror was his undoing. Fear is a fragile thing. The moment people stop being afraid, the illusion shatters. Grindelwald didn't rely on fear alone. He didn't need people to cower before him. He needed them to believe in him. Even when he was imprisoned, the world still remembered his name. His movement didn't die with him. It lived on in the minds of those who saw his vision as more than just a madman's dream. At the end of the day, Voldemort was powerful but predictable, dangerous but flawed, terrifying but hollow. Grindelwald was something else entirely. He wasn't just a dark wizard. He was a force of nature, an idea, a shadow that lingered long after his time had passed. If Voldemort was the nightmare, Grindelwald was the storm, a storm that changed the course of history. And that's why, when it comes to the greatest dark wizard of all time, there's no real competition. Grindelwald wins. Every time.